Sketches from Memory, by Nathaniel Hawthorne. The Notch of the White Mountains. It was mid-September. We'd left Bartlett at sunrise, travelling up the Saco Valley, framed by steep mountains or level stretches like a church aisle. For 3 days we dawdled toward the White Mountains, those ancient crystal peaks whose gleam had lured us from afar, heights piled on heights until clouds hung below their summits, red slide paths. Avalanches of earth, stone, and trees scoured their slopes, marks time could scarcely heal. Mountains flanked us, with grander ones ahead. Our road climbed along the Saco, aiming for their heart as if to pierce the clouds. Long ago, settlers marveled at northern Indians raiding from this range through secret passes. It's a stunning route. Imagine a demon, or a titan, shoving peaks aside, only to meet a mountain barring his way. Undeterred, he splits it from top to bottom, bearing its minerals, dark waters, and jagged cliffs. This is the Notch of the White Hills. I'm ashamed to liken it to such a petty image. It's a scene that stirs the soul toward awe, not mere pictures. We reached a narrow cut, almost man-made, with smooth granite walls towering high, especially on our right, where evergreens clung sparsely. This was the Notch's end, or start, for us. A stagecoach rattled up behind, seats atop, trunks astern, a sharp driver in drab cracking his whip. Its poetry rivaled an Indian war, party emerging from the same wild gap. All but a plump lady dismounted, a mineralogist in black with a hammer smashing rocks, a dapper youth with a gold opera, glass-quoting Byron, a Vermont trader, and a pale girl, delicate as an alpine bloom. They vanished as we entered a deep pine forest, its gloom unbroken for miles. Near dusk, we hit a flat basin ringed by hills that stole the sun early. Here we first saw the main peaks up close. Majestic, daunting, broad-based yet vast, not just tall. Mount Washington seemed heaven-bound, snow-clad a mile down, its peak veiled by the day's lone cloud. Forget the statesmen's names tacked to these hills. Call the highest Was ein Gieten. Mountains are Earth's timeless markers, outlasting us, fit only for universal giants, not fleeting local heroes. The air, rarely warm at 2,000 feet, turned sharp like a November night below. Frost or snow might coat the grass by morning. I welcomed the sight of a sturdy house ahead, and the lively guests at its door. Our evening party among the mountains. We stood before an old, solid farmhouse, its sign naming it the White Mountain Post Office, serving maybe 20 souls across a few hill townships. Deer antlers, a fox tail, and a fresh bear paw, spoils of a hunt, adorned it. Among the doorstep crowd, a 6'2" mountaineer stood out, his anvil-hewn face hinting at wit and humour. As we neared, he raised a long tin trumpet and blew a blast, greeting us or rousing an echo. Ethan Crawford's guests were a vivid mix. Fashionable tourists and rustic travellers rarely seen together. There were the mineralogist and opera, glass youth from the Notch, 2 Georgians chilled atop Mount Washington, a Conway doctor and wife, a Burlington trader, a Green Mountain squire, and 2 Massachusetts honeymooners. Local woodcutters, bear slayers joined too. I mingled, studying them as Ethan's trumpet echo returned, not one sound, but a weave of harmonies from the hills, faint and dreamlike. Later tries paled afield, Peace's boom circled the peaks unbroken. Cold drove us inside, hungry for supper. Great fires roared in the parlour and bar room, the latter's stone hearth vast enough for a tree trunk, fueled by Ethan's forest. In the parlour, as night settled, we shielded our eyes from the glow and chatted. The mineralogist and doctor praised the air's vigour, citing Ethan's hale 75-year-old father. The bride's and doctor's wife whispered and giggled about wedded life. The grooms sat mute, shy with their new wives. The squire regaled me with tales of crossing the Notch 50 years back. Once an 18-day trek, now one. The Georgians shared a sonnet to the snow on Mount Washington, penned that day by the opera glass poet. fancy but cold. Like the frost I'd see atop the peak, he took our praise coolly, a seasoned bard. Winter, I mused, would bring yeoman teamsters here en route to Portland. A school of New England grit. Study them at Ethan's in December, dine, laugh, sleep 3 to a bed, then march with them at dawn against the wind. A frozen nose would be worth their rugged lore. Talk turned lively. We swapped Indian talus. Their first pair survived a flood on Mount Washington, though their kin found no such haven. To savages, these peaks were sacred, lit by gem fire, home to gods in snowstorms. The Great Carbuncle legend, of a vast jewel shining over a lake, guarded by a spirit, enchanted me. Many sought it, lost to mist or madness, never returning. A moral tale brewed in my mind. These red men's myths didn't stir us palefaces, even here. Their world felt too alien. I've rued my blindness to Indian romance. Others see it, I can't. Yet their chroniclers earn a lasting shelf, their tribes gone. I asked the mineralogist about the Silver Hills. Sold centuries back to an Englishman whose hairs still hunt the loot. He knew nothing of them. Night deepened, we lingered, loath to rise for tomorrow's climb to the Carbuncle. The canal boat I felt poetic about the Grand Canal. DeWitt Clinton, an enchanter, linked Hudson to Erie, turning worthless land to gold with a watery road. Sleepy Dutchmen must have gaped as it flowed past, trading their idle crops for cash. This stream, I fancied, sprouted towns, brick, stone, churches, theatres, until one day it might run through a single bustling street from Buffalo to Albany. I boarded 30 miles below Utica, aiming to sail it twice that summer. We floated, 3 horses pulling our Neptune's shell through a muddy puddle. Dark, sluggish, safe from storms or wrecks, it crept through swamps and dull plains, yet offered enough variety to stave off total boredom. We met lumber barges, square-ended, with a hut housing a family born afloat, drifting with their hearth. Line boats bore cabins and cargo. Packets like ours had curtained windows, sleepy faces peeking out. A black, rude craft with 3 silent Indians stared at us. Perhaps the land's last hares to ride its tide. Then, in a swamp under gloom, a Swiss boat burst with colour and laughter. Scarlet, yellow, blue, singing in strange tongues. A white, armed girl bantered with me. We laughed, uncomprehending. Their joy lit that dreary stretch. Afoot, I'd have lingered over the bank's shifting scenes, dense forest's bleak stump, lands with a gaunt woman at a shack window. Poverty amid wealth's flow. Locks bred tiny marts, grocers hoarding coins, villages rose, wood or grey stone, church spires, grand named taverns. Then Utica's brick piles, docks, and bustle sucked us in, only to spit us back to woods. It grew tiresome, we turned childish. An Englishman shot at squirrels with a rifle stick, missing ducks I pelted with apples, grinning at their scramble. Mishaps amused, a farmer's leg snared by the tow, rope, a passenger's bridge, slip another's plunge in Sunday best, cheered as he dripped. A Virginia teacher, lost in Virgil, met a bridge with his head. I winced, but he just rubbed the bump, and we smirked. Supper, spread cabin long, was the day's peak, dimness calling for lamps. Rain drummed the deck, wind rattling windows. Boredom bred mischief. I eyed the Englishman's notes, imagining his cruel mirror, the teacher, a patchwork scholar, the farmer, a dar bigot, a greedy phoenix, the lady, shrinking yet impure. All my countrymen skewered. My own reflection caught his gaze. A curtain split the cabin. Men and women shelved to sleep. Snorers roared, whispers, rustles, and creaks from beyond kept me awake. Restless, I flipped from my narrow berth, crashing down, rosing all. Unhurt, I climbed on deck. Lanterns glowed in pitch black. No world existed beyond their light. An eerie stage. We crossed the long level, 70 flat miles from Utica to Syracuse. The swamp forest, cedar, ash, rotted white from canal drainage, pools glinting under dark boughs. Fallen giants crushed lesser trees in ashy chaos, fading as we passed, ghostly realm for dreams. It struck me wild America retreated here, yet we vulgar throng invaded her ruin. A light ahead, a rusty scow, maybe the Flying Dutchman, swept by, pipe smoke trailing. Our horn wailed for fresh horses, the tow rope snagged, and I chased a glowing tree, cold fire of decay, fit for tomes. Distracted, I saw our lanterns vanish. Boat ahoy! I yelled, unanswered. They'd gone, leaving me at midnight with a trek to Syracuse. I took a torch from the tree, unburning yet bright, and wandered like a willow, the wisp